Welcome back to another live question period with David Krayden. We're going to be looking at a couple of videos before we go to question period. You just saw the statements by members are in progress. But I wanted to show you a couple of videos, one of which proves that Justin Trudeau really is the prime clown of political leaders in the world today. I'm sure a lot of you saw his May the 4th Star Wars tribute X post, which some people out there thought was really good. But millions of people, tens of millions of people thought was really bad, cringe-worthy, strange, a case of arrested development. So if you haven't seen it, have a watch of this.
Changing Star Wars.
Amazing. And so what's your plan?
I'm working. I'm actually packing up my stuff because I got to hit the road soon. But listen.
Pretty special, huh? Yeah, well, he's got another one, which I didn't put up, and he gets in sort of a laser sword fight with this kid, and I'm not sure what the point of it is. He's also in another video the Liberals have put up over the weekend. They're trying to depict Pierre Poilievre as Darth Vader, I think. It's not clear what these people are up to right now because, of course, Pierre Poilievre's the guy that's going to ban abortion on day one of a conservative government. He's plotting with this wicked Diagolon, which is some militia on the prairies, except it's not. And except Poilievre can't stand Diagolon because it was involved in a threat against his wife at one time, and he's denounced it previously because of this. Diagolon is a chat group, and I've said this a dozen times now on this broadcast and others. And this is bizarre stuff. But of course, you know what's going on here, and I know what's going on. This talking points, right? These are just talking points. This is Justin Trudeau doing his best to make Pierre Poilievre look like some sort of crazy man, when in fact Justin Trudeau's the crazy man. He's the wacko. You know, he's the one that's got the problems here. So let's call what is factual. But I found that fascinating. I wanted to share it with you. But I want you to see this other video because there's more to this, and I'm going to be showing it later in the week in a deeper broadcast that deals with the World Economic Forum and the other globalist forces that are attempting to usurp our democratic rights. And if you watched my interview last week with Kyle Kemper, thank you for so many people watching it, by the way, and so many new subscribers coming on board as a result of that broadcast. If you watch that, you'll realize that Kyle Kemper says his brother's controlled by globalist forces. He says he's just the team captain. And he's got Jagmeet Singh on one side, and he's got Chrystia Freeland on the other, and they're all playing for the same team, which is controlled by the globalists. But have a look at this. This is chilling. This is what the globalists are up to.
A warm welcome for many of you to the World Economic Forum headquarters. This is where the magic happens. And you are part of that magic. Feel the magic in these walls.
Feel the magic.
Feel the magic that many leaders, many communities are bringing so that we can come together and create impact that we want in this world. What most of you don't know is that we took a long exercise to work with our advisory board, with our foundation board, with different stakeholders to really refine what's our mission statement. We know that the YGL community is a dynamic accelerator of a dynamic community of exceptional leaders who have the vision, the courage, and the influence to drive change. And we have a mission. And this mission is that we are a diverse community that inspires and connects extraordinary leaders in their efforts to build a more inclusive and sustainable world. That's who we are. And I would like by this occasion to thank all the members of the Foundation Board and the advisory councils who've been with us in this exercise and really helped us to narrow what are the low-hanging fruits and the sweet spots where we can do more, where we can achieve more, where by bringing all the exceptional leaders that you are, we can create something meaningful for our community, societies, local communities, and beyond. And that's what we do as daily activities. We select you, we connect you in our gatherings because we want to transform you. We select you because you are an exceptional leader, but we believe that you have the potential to even be better. And this is the space for it. This is where the magic happens. And the work of the YGL community comes within a framework. And that framework is the framework of the World Economic Forum. The idea of the forum is to be an incubator of projects. Have you heard of Gavi, for example? Gavi was a project that was launched in Davos some decades ago, and now it's by itself an organization. There are, as I said, hundreds of these. I'll highly encourage you to check out this, because you can be engaged in this project, and that's where the forum brings all the stakeholders so that we advance the mission of the forum. You are all privileged, right? You're all privileged. Just by being in this room, you are privileged. And you should not be ashamed of your privilege. But you should be ashamed if you don't use it for a purpose. And that's important.
So don't be afraid of your privilege, except if it's white privilege. So if you look up who this guy is, he's never had a real job in his life. He's sort of been absorbed into the WEF, and now he's in charge of the global youngsters. So, but this is how they talk. They literally think they have the right to rule because they think they're so damn intelligent. You know, I've seen no evidence of any intelligence going on with these people or these meetings. All they know how to do is read the script and talk about how we should eat insects, live in 15-minute cities, and live in boxes. And we won't need to possess anything. In fact, we probably won't even need any money because we'll just get sustenance from the state. But this is absolutely crazy. I wanted you to see this. I'm going to show more of it later in the week. But we'll go to the tail end of the members' statements now. I hope you're going to enjoy today's as much as I do. It's always fun, but it's more fun when I'm joined by you folks. And hopefully, the Environment and Climate Change Minister, good old Stephen Guilbeault, will have a question he can answer today, because I have some very surprising news to reveal about Mr. Guilbeault today, which I'm sure will come as a surprise to many of you. But we're going to wait and see if Stephen has a chance to get up and talk today. We always enjoy his responses. He's a proud socialist, after all. And goodness gracious, there are those out there who thinks he's also a proud Marxist. But he's certainly not a very good Canadian. Let's go to question period, and I'll comment as required. Try to keep it lightweight today. Try to keep it upbeat. And I do try to be as witty as I can at times. But if I get carried away with the passion, it's because I do care. And because I want people to know how bad it is. So it's Mental Health Week. That's they've got some prime candidates here in the House of Commons.
In our neighborhoods and parks, on our playgrounds, in coffee shops, and even in our hospitals is truly wacko. Because
Sorry
this
about
Prime
the sound,
Minister and
folks.
NDP Premier David Eby have surrendered our most
It's
precious
back.
public spaces to illegal drug dealers. This is a wacko policy.
I have
These
no
illegal
idea why
drug
the
dealers
sound turned
prey
off.
on our most vulnerable in society.
Thank you
This
for
is not
mentioning
good for
it.
those suffering with addictions, nor is it good for public safety. In fact, even the
As
BC
long
and
as it's
NDP
on
have
for
now
the
figured this
questions.
out.
Anyway.
Since the BC government asked 10 days ago to stop this wacko far-left legalization of hard drugs project, some 60 British Columbians have died due to the Prime Minister's political dithering. Mr. Speaker, let's end this wacko, failed, deadly, illegal drug experiment in British Columbia, and let's bring common sense conservative solutions that will protect the public and those battling with addictions instead of supporting illegal drug dealers.
Yeah, the sound was wacko there for a minute. You're right. Sometimes it just cuts, and I didn't know. I don't notice. So thank you for pointing it out.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today on behalf of many Canadians who are looking for our government's continued commitment to our coastal communities and their families by standing with the Canadian aquaculture industry. Through investment and innovation in technologies and practices, Canada's highly regulated aquaculture industry can continue to grow and prosper. Our coastal communities on the East Coast and on the coast of British Columbia ask that we are given the chance to continue to thrive with a
Thought
modern
Trudeau wept because it made me dead.
industry.
All right, I got to start putting these
100%
up.
of the remaining salmon farms in coastal British Columbia
The sound is back, folks.
operate
Okay,
with the support of
relax.
coastal First Nations in whose traditional territories they exist. The activists have an ill-informed agenda that ignores the science. As we look to long-term renewal of BC salmon farming licenses,
Good grief. Now it's the sound's too tinny. Okay.
versus poverty for many Indigenous communities.
I doubt
The
Trudeau's
future
here
of
today.
Canada's coastal
Monday,
communities depends on it.
it's too
Thank
much
you,
to
Mr.
expect
Speaker.
the great one to arrive for question period.
Questions.
Here we go. Questions are out.
The headlines in Quebec again today show that after 9 years, this prime minister is not worth the cost of housing, which has doubled in his 9 years tenure. It's a disaster about to happen. Organizations are calling for help. There are renters who are contemplating suicide, soon to be forced to live in their van. These are the headlines. After 9 years, why should Quebecers believe the Prime Minister now? The Honourable Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
No Trudeau today.
Mr. Speaker, I understand this situation is difficult for renters and people who don't have housing. And that's why the government, after discussion and negotiation, has entered into a deal with Quebec to build affordable housing.
Thank you, Nitmar666, new member. Thank you.
Federal officials, 8,000 to 10,000 affordable housing units will be built. The leader of the Conservative Party is opposed. That's not okay. We need to work with our
This guy's a
Quebec
walking disaster everywhere he goes.
Affordable housing.
His failure. Capital F.
More expensive promises. This
Trudeau's
Prime
not here
Minister
today,
is
Tom.
not worth the cost after 9 years. What's worse, the Bloc voted in favor of $500 billion in inflationary centralizing spendings. That's going to cause interest rates to shoot up. Quebecers will lose their homes, and taxpayers will have to pay even more now on debt service than on health care. When will the Prime Minister recognize that he and the Bloc are not worth the cost? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we have a plan
here she goes.
to build more housing more quickly, but the Conservatives voted against it. We have a plan for a green industrial transition, but the Conservatives voted against it. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to share some big news that Canadians got last week. And
I don't think she's wearing the Spanx today either.
That our credit rating, our AAA credit rating, the highest possible credit rating. Canada still
What
has that
does it
because of
matter?
our budget policy. The
You
Honourable
got a
Leader
you
of the
got a
Opposition.
good credit
Minister is
rating.
not worth the crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder. It has now been 10 days and 60 dead British Columbians since the government of that province has asked the Prime Minister to reverse his deadly and radical legalization of crack, heroin, and other hard drugs in children's parks, hospitals, on transit. Why will he not reverse his radical agenda?
This is shocking. They're sitting on their behinds on this issue.
The Honourable Minister for Mental Addictions and Health.
Oh, not
Mr.
this.
Speaker,
No,
communities
no.
in BC are facing an extremely serious challenge. It is a toxic drug supply on the streets and people are dying. We know that public consumption is an issue of concern, which is exactly why, Mr. Speaker, BC is amending their proposal, and we have been working with them every step of the way. We're treating this with the urgency it deserves, and all partners are at the table right now, Mr. Speaker, to find the path forward, working with law enforcement and health services so that we get this right and save lives, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the
They
Opposition.
keep blaming this toxic
Mr. Speaker,
supply of drugs.
Find a path forward. The path forward is obvious. Ban hard drugs, invest in treatment, bring our loved ones home drug-free. That minister claimed last week that she was waiting for the BC government to provide information before she could decide on reversing radical legalization.
Exactly.
It turns out the government had given her that information within hours of the request. She has all the information, so why are her and her radical boss clinging on to this insane policy?
Yeah, they keep blaming the toxic supply out there. All heroin is toxic.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we follow science, we follow healthcare experts, and we follow the information. We are working with BC on a comprehensive amendment to their proposal. This takes collaborative work, Mr. Speaker, to get it right. This is a health issue, Mr. Speaker, not a criminal one. The Leader of the Opposition is misleading Canadians in not recognizing that people need health care. They do not need to be re-stigmatized and criminalized.
What the hell does that
Honourable
mean?
Leader of the Opposition.
The government,
Speaker,
the government drug supply is safe.
Abbotsford Soccer Association wrote a letter entitled "A Cry for Change." Volunteers with the organization have found dirty needles that can puncture innocent children in the playing field. Other BC fields have had women raped and overdose, have found addicts naked, have had pets actually overdose because there's so much drug contamination on the site.
Incredible.
What are they thinking over there?
They're not thinking over
The
there.
Honourable Minister
Are
of
they?
Finance and Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, a pilot project was put in place at BC's request. BC now has serious concerns about some aspects of that. We share those concerns and we are addressing them. But I do want to say, Mr. Speaker, I do not think there is a family in Canada that is untouched by the tragedy of opioids. And
Yes, thanks
I
to
think
you.
that it is absolutely abhorrent to try to score political points off the pain of Canadians.
She is a disgrace to her office.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr.
No,
Speaker, the creative people working
Now
at
we got to
Radio
vote. What's
Canada
best
are
for
worried,
Quebec?
the cultural community is worried, the Quebec government's talking about a catastrophe.
I got to make a comment here while the blockhead speaking. You know, this minister of drugs, the drug czar in the cabinet there, keeps talking about this toxic supply on the street, and like the government supply is okay. There's nothing hazardous about taking the government supply of drugs, as if heroin in any form isn't toxic. It's lethal. It's killing people. People are overdosing on it, whether it comes from the government or whether they get it on the street. These people are so dense. This is infuriating to listen to these imbeciles try to communicate a message which is not just indecipherable. It is completely, let's say it, wacko. And that's what Paul was trying to say. a week and a half ago now. Yes.
Canada should be completely separate and funded separately. I don't understand where they're going with that. It makes no sense. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. There's what's said publicly, and then there's anonymous information. What La Presse tells us is that nothing has been ruled out with this so-called rapprochement, including programming. And there's indeed talk of a management merger. That means a single management team for the French and English networks. In Canada, when you mix English with French, you always get English because French takes the back seat. Will the Prime Minister put a stop to this very dangerous idea of bringing the CBC and Radio-Canada closer together? The Honourable Minister of Heritage.
They're going to be sold
Mr.
anyway.
Speaker,
Don't worry about it,
I would
pal.
point out that the Conservatives are applauding when the Bloc talks. And when the Bloc talks about separating CBC from
because they're going to defund them
what's
both.
Going on with the Bloc that they're so aligned with the Conservatives over something as important and fundamental as our public broadcaster? They were never able to protect the public broadcaster from the Conservatives when they were in power. And here we are saying that the Francophone programming and content will be protected. We don't want to cut the funding to the CBC or
days are numbered. So is Radio-Canada. Their days are numbered.
Delay in protecting women's rights, and the Conservatives straight up want to attack women's rights. Last year, they brought in a motion attacking a woman's right to choose. Right now, they're blocking free birth control for women. And later on this week, they're going to go and attend an anti-choice rally. Do Democrats want more freedom, more choices, and more affordability for women? So will the government support us in stopping the Conservatives from denying 9 million Canadians free birth control?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Let me state it
Same
clearly
bloody suit he wears every day.
Every woman in this country, every part of this country, must have access to the oral contraceptives that she needs to have control over her reproductive future. Any party that stands in the way of that is standing in the way of basic freedom for women in this country to have freedom and autonomy over their body. I will say to the Conservative Party of Canada, stop blocking this so that women can get the reproductive aids they need to have control over their reproductive futures.
This pathetic half-wit is the one who wants control over bodies. He's the euthanasia czar. He's a pathetic half-wit.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Mr. Speaker,
Buy a new suit.
free
One that fits,
contraceptives will save women hundreds of dollars and give them more freedom to choose. But the Conservatives want to block that. They want women to pay more and have less freedom. But New Democrats won't allow it. Will the government vote with us today to ensure that 9 million people have access to free contraceptives?
Is that the best he can come up with today?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Free contraceptives.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's a question of freedom.
Freedom.
For women all
How
across
about
this
COVID
country.
mandates, Holland?
The freedom
Was that a
to
question of
have
freedom?
Access to medication that women need for their bodies. And I wonder why the Conservatives are blocking this bill, which will provide medications not just for women, but also for diabetics. It's time for action, Mr. Speaker. It's time to ensure that there are true freedoms for women all across the country.
That's so important to people. Just get that free birth control and life is so much better. Nice tie, by the way. Where'd you pick that up at the Goodwill?
NDP Prime Minister, it doesn't feel like Canada anymore. Life is more unaffordable than ever. Canadians, the Governor of the Bank of Canada, even random Liberals are saying this government is not helpful. They're out of control spending and not worth the cost. Canadians are living in their cars and in tents because they can't afford housing. They're lining up at food banks in record numbers because they can't afford food and leaving in droves because they can't afford the high cost of living. When will the Liberals implement a common sense plan and bring in a dollar for dollar law, cap government spending so inflation and interest rates can come down?
Yeah, that's a good point. Jagmeet gets up and he talks about free contraceptives. Nothing else.
Speaker, we have put forward a budget that invests in the things Canadians need. First and foremost, housing. And we're doing that by asking those at the very top to contribute a little bit more. And the good news, Mr. Speaker, is we are doing it in a fiscally responsible way. And you don't have to believe the partisans in any chair in this House talk to the analysts at Moody's, who last week reaffirmed Canada's AAA rating, the highest that exists, with a stable outlook. Doesn't get better than that, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, how nice. Everybody can bank on, go to the bank with your AAA
Common
rating.
sense is chasing this finance minister, just like in Alberta, she's speeding away from it. They've put taxpayers on the hook. $54 billion of taxpayer money is going to go to, just in interest to this prime minister's doubling of the debt. That means more money is going to bankers, bondholders, and this finance minister's Bay Street buddies than to doctors, nurses, and to the healthcare system. Why doesn't she pump on the brakes on the hypocrisy and let common sense catch up? Introduce a dollar for dollar law so inflation and interest rates can finally come down.
What a charade the Liberal government
and Minister of Finance
continues to purport.
Mr. Speaker, last week, Moody's reaffirmed our AAA credit rating. These are
that says it all, Christia.
Who have pointed out that Canada has the most fiscally responsible plan in the G7. But let's talk for a minute, Mr. Speaker, about hypocrisy. Conservative hypocrisy. Last week, Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader wrote an op-ed asking business leaders to attack our budget. I guess that's because he doesn't have the courage to come out and say the truth, which is he stands for those at the top, not regular Canadians.
What a joke. what a malicious, malignant woman. Cancerous
the
woman.
Governor of the Bank of Canada confirmed what millions of Canadians already know. Liberal spending is making life more expensive. 9 years of NDP Liberal deficits had led to a lost decade, lowering standards of living, record food bank usage, and a housing crisis. Will the government finally commit to a dollar-for-dollar rule that allow Canadians to feed their families and keep their homes?
Great job.
We're spending twice as much money as we're taking in. That is the reality.
Mr. Speaker, I respect the member for Northumberland, and he is better than actually misrepresenting the words of the Governor of the Bank of Canada. The reality is the Governor of the Bank of Canada, in testimony since the budget, has said, and I quote, "The budget does respect the fiscal guardrails that the government put in place." And I quote, that's what he said. And he said, quote, "Keeping the debt to GDP ratio on a declining track, and importantly, keeping the deficit below 1% of GDP in future years. The budget commits to those guardrails, and that is helpful."
The honourable member from Northumberland, Peterborough
Just a
South.
compulsive liar.
I will quote the Governor directly. He said that this Liberal budget is not helpful. It's more distraction, more denial. In order to cover up their record of massive deficits, which has led to over $54 billion of interest being paid in this budget alone. We'll pay more in the GST. We'll collect more in the GST, or collect more here than in the GST in terms of interest. We will pay more in interest than we will in healthcare transfers. When will they finally get their deficits under control so that Canadians can eat and they keep their homes?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, that is simply not true. I encourage people to read the testimony of the Governor of the Bank of Canada and news reports about that testimony. Here is what he said, and I am quoting precisely: "Keeping the debt to GDP ratio on a declining track, and importantly, keeping deficits below 1% of GDP in future years. The budget also commits to those guardrails going forward, and that is helpful." Those are the words of the governor. People can just take a look at the transcript, Mr. Speaker.
The most unpopular budget in 30 years. And she's got the nerve to suggest it's being praised.
Quebecers are struggling. Mortgage renewals are hurting them. Mortgage rates are high, due in part to the chaotic management of public finances by this Prime Minister and the Bloc. Over the past 9 years, more than $500 billion in additional spending has been voted in by the Liberals and supported by the Bloc. That includes $115 billion in June 2022 for pipelines. And yes, the so-called Green Bloc voted for a pipeline. Will the Liberals and the Bloc take responsibility for the high cost of mortgages and of living? The Honourable Minister.
Oh, there he
Mr.
is.
Speaker, Canadians hear one
His
party
dramatic
that has
moment
no
from
ambition, no
Champagne.
vision, and no plan. Mr. Speaker, Canadians have a choice to make. They have a choice to listen to a party that has no vision or a government that's investing in youth, in growth, in housing, in science, and in research, Mr. Speaker. Here on this side of the House, we will continue to invest in Canadians because countries that have confidence invest in their people, and that's
There
precisely
on that
what we'll
side
do.
of the House, they're living in an
The honourable
alternate
member for
universe.
Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party has a lot of vision and common sense, unlike the government opposite, which seems to have lost sight of that. The Bloc is doing no better than the Liberals. The Bloc supported $500 billion in extra spending. They've always voted against the budget, but they do vote for all of the budgetary appropriations. And that's why Quebecers and Canadians are struggling. Will the government ask the Bloc why they're always supporting them in their nonsensical programs? Mr. Speaker, Canadians watching understand that that's not common sense. It's nonsense in 2024 to have no ambition for the country, no vision, no plan for the country at a time when we're in a full economic transition. People watching at home understand we're investing in science and research. We're investing in the next generation. We're investing in growth. It's the time for that. That's what we're doing. It's time to invest. We're a confident nation, and we will build a Canada of tomorrow together.
A perpetuation of BS.
Let's come back to immigration. On February 12th, the House supported a motion giving the government 100 days to convene a First Minister's meeting on immigration capacity.
Yeah, the Bloc should
days to
should never be sitting in the House of Commons. It is a travesty of democracy.
As early as 2024.
It's a travesty of
100 days
federalism.
to table a
These
report on the
people
gap
have nothing
between
to
federal
offer.
targets and settlement capacity. Then 100 days to determine how to close this gap financially to ensure the successful settlement or integration of newcomers. There's 2 weeks to go. Have the premiers been invited to this meeting? Is the invitation in the mail? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the member should know, I met with my colleagues, ministers, on Thursday. I'm looking forward to
There's a
what comes out of that
vacuous
meeting this
minister if there
Thursday,
ever was one.
and they will explain what their settlement capacity is. So I'm looking forward to what follows. The honourable member for Jean-Pierre. Thank you. As early as November, this House voted unanimously, calling on the federal government to review its immigration targets as early as 2024, after consultation with Quebec and the provinces based on their settlement capacity. Even the Liberals recognize that the targets should reflect needs in housing, health, education, franchisation, and infrastructure. Yet Ottawa continues to increase immigration in 2024 and again in 2025. When will the government listen to the reasonable demands of this House and stop blindly increasing immigration levels?
Does not even constitute an opposition party because all they are is focused on one province. So you can't call them an opposition
I believe
party.
I answered the previous
and the
question.
NDP
It's
is
the
not
same
an opposition
question,
party.
essentially, so
They're in
the question's
cahoots
been asked
with
and
the
answered.
government. They're part of a de facto
honourable member
coalition.
for
There's only
Jonquière.
one opposition party.
Wow, that's going to get us really far. The federal government is blindly increasing its levels, despite the House's request to adjust levels to suit settlement capacity, despite the House's request to start this process within 100 days with a meeting of First Ministers, despite the unfavorable opinion of the public service, warnings of economists, and despite CMHC figures showing that the housing crisis is getting worse. They want to know nothing about that. Why do the Liberals refuse at all costs to know how many people we can realistically accommodate without shortchanging them in terms of services or their basic needs? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. As I just said, Mr. Speaker, and I don't know if the member changed his sheet of paper for all three of those questions. They all sounded the same to me. I will be meeting with my provincial counterparts this Thursday to discuss our cooperation. We'll see what...
I got a video I want to show you folks later in the week. It was sent to me by one of our viewers. It's about how to sneak into Canada, because apparently people are being arrested and deported at the airports. So there's a video out there saying how you can sneak into Canada. I want to show this to you later in the week on one of my broadcasts.
Who have to live in their cars or go without food, or food banks that can no longer supply to meet the demand of their customers. All of this because of the Prime Minister's $500 billion in inflationary spending supported by the Bloc. When will the Prime Minister stop spending so people can finally start eating again despite the Bloc? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of
This
Finance.
government will spend the
Mr.
country
Speaker,
into the ground. This woman
Quebecers
will spend the country into the ground.
need investment in healthcare, and we're doing that. Quebecers need investment in childcare, and we've done that too.
We've done that
Quebecers
too, yeah.
need investment in housing. We're doing that. The only thing the Conservatives understand is cut, 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 and austerity, because they're afraid of raising taxes
And
on the
all
wealthy.
you understand is spend,
Honourable
spend,
Member for
spend,
Mégantic
like
Lérable.
there's no tomorrow.
Quebecers are already experiencing austerity imposed by this government. They can't afford rent. They can't afford groceries. That's the reality Quebecers are dealing with every day. After 9 years, this Prime Minister has found a dance partner to spend and create even more inflation at the expense of families. He knows the Bloc won't vote against them because the Bloc loves this Liberal government. The Bloc House Leader himself told
Yes,
TVA,
Christopher
we're not
Freeland
going to
could be a
scrutinize
bobblehead,
everything
though.
the government spends. What good is the Bloc if it votes for $500 billion in Liberal inflationary spending? When will
Well,
the Bloc-backed Prime Minister stop
the
impoverishing
Bloc is no
Quebecers?
good for
The Honourable
anybody.
Minister.
The
Thank you,
Bloc is good for nothing.
Mr. Speaker. Speaking of reality, the Conservative leader, when he was minister responsible for housing, he got 6 housing units, affordable units built.
Yes, we've heard
whereas
this
we're
myth
getting
before.
8,000
What a
built.
ridiculous talking point that
So
is.
the Conservatives
Only 6 homes were
have
built.
insulted Quebec municipalities, calling them incompetent. So 6 versus 8,000.
This is the moron who wants you to take the jab for the rest of your life, or until it kills you.
It's already been a few weeks
Which
now
is the same thing.
that there's been a grievance at the University of Quebec. The status of the university has changed. The question is, does the member for Quebec City, did the member request that advantage, or did he simply accept the University of Laval's offer? It's a queer question. Could we get a clear answer, please? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker.
Oh, there's this half-assed.
Better of the member than that. He knows
I
that
bet you
Canada
did.
has among the strictest rules in the world when it comes to conflict of interest and ethics. This minister has been exemplary when it comes to strict adherence to conflict of interest and ethical rules. So I'm very surprised to hear that question coming
Where
from
is
that
Boissonneau?
member.
He hasn't even got on his feet for the last 2 weeks to address these conflict of interest
Human Rights
problems.
Watch and other advocates have called on the Liberals to end Canada's rights-violating immigration detention system.
What are you talking about? There's lots of time.
Traumatizes people seeking safety. Provinces have ended immigration detention in their jurisdictions. Instead of following their lead, this federal government plans to lock up migrants and asylum seekers in federal prisons. They also want to codify this practice into law. This is in violation of international human rights standards. When will this government stop jailing people seeking safety and a better life?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate our honourable colleague's question. I share her concern that the rights of all individuals must be respected. I think she will understand that there are a very small group of individuals with perhaps violent criminal pasts, those that may be involved in terrorist activity, for whom releasing in the community is not an acceptable option for public safety. We'd worked for many years with the provinces that kept this very small group of individuals in the appropriate custody, and now we're going to take our responsibility at the same time respecting their rights.
There's the guy who wants to replace Justin Trudeau.
Member from
Just won't admit it.
Mr. Speaker, every minute, 2 garbage trucks worth of plastic are dumped into the world's oceans. Canada has the longest coastline in the world, and plastic and industrial waste are choking the shoreline, making its way into our food and harming vital ecosystems. But the Liberal solution canceling the Ghost Gear Fund, which creates local jobs and removes plastic and marine debris from our water.
Shut up for a second. You can't believe Fergus is there. He's got the full support of the government and the prime minister and the NDP, and that's all he needs. He has no conscience. He has no embarrassment. He has no shame at all. And it's outrageous. He should be sitting there. He is a disgrace to the House of Commons.
How important the state of our oceans are, and we are working very hard.
Oh my God.
Projects have been implemented.
Wouldn't want to run into her in a dark
recuperating
night.
phantom objects, and work will continue, Mr. Speaker, with our communities and with those in the fields. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Mississauga Malton.
Speaker, our government will always uphold the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to protect Canadians' rights. We even established a rule in 2019
No,
that
you're taking all our rights
bill
away.
must be accompanied by a charter statement to ensure that Canadians' rights
Oh,
are
this is going to be,
respected
this
in
is a
all
softball
legislation.
about Polly, I'm
Last week, the
taking
Leader
away
of the
our rights.
Opposition admitted that he would overrule
Yeah, I
Canadians'
knew it.
rights using the notwithstanding clause. Can the Minister of Justice please reaffirm our government's commitment to upholding
This
the
Minister of
Charter?
Justice who's taking our freedom of speech away. What a bunch of blatant hypocrites these
I thank the member for the question.
jokers
I
are.
will state that our government will stop at nothing to ensure that Canadians' charter guaranteed rights and
How
freedoms
big's the bald
are
spot
protected.
getting now?
You cannot claim to care about freedom and then vow to strip certain people's freedoms away when it is politically inconvenient. That is not democracy, Mr. Speaker. The opposition has said they'll start with criminal justice matters, but where will they stop? Religious rights, abortion rights, the rights of the LGBTQ2 community? Our government will always protect all Canadians' rights. It's a wake-up call that the Leader of the Opposition cannot and will not do the same.
Let's have a look at the ball. It's getting larger. The old Samoan proverb: take freedom of speech away, and your bald spot will get larger.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this Liberal government, the crises are getting worse and worse and worse. Housing, cost of living, and now the opioid crisis. The situation in Montreal is getting worse and worse. Crack and heroin can be found close to
Thank you,
close to
Gordon.
schools,
That's very
and
kind of
people
you
are
to say
afraid
that.
are afraid
But
for their
it's
parents
true.
and their families.
His bald spot is enlarging every day,
Has helped the
and he
Liberals
is
in this
taking our
policy?
freedom of
The Bloc
speech away.
Québécois. They are
So
simply not worth
look
the
up
cost,
that
Mr.
old
Speaker. My
Samoan
question is
proverb.
simple. When will the Prime Minister put an end to this radical hard drug legalization process? The honourable leader of the government in the House. The member knows full well that there have been no such requests from Quebec, and so there will be no change considered in treating opioids in Quebec. The honourable member for Bellechasse.
The whole country is dying of opioid.
Mr. Speaker,
And these
after
people
9
don't give a
years, the
damn.
Bloc continues to support this Prime Minister's full spending spree. The Bloc wants more transfers to the provinces, but then votes in favour of $500 billion in centralising and inflationary credits. We just don't get it on this side. Without housing, Quebecers are becoming homeless, which is having a major impact on the healthcare system. The Bloc and the Prime Minister are simply not worth the cost. When will this Bloc-backed Prime Minister stop wasting money so that Quebecers can be housed with dignity? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it would perhaps be a good idea for the Conservatives to talk to
It's a good
the
idea
Quebec
for you to
provincial
tell the
government,
truth once in a while, but you
the
can't do that.
mayors of Quebec's municipalities. This because we have an agreement with Quebec that seeks to invest in housing. The province of
Oh,
Quebec
she's getting a little passionate
and
there.
the federal government
Look at that.
know how important it is to invest in housing, to
Starting to
invest
wake
in order
up.
to help support Quebecers. But these Conservatives simply only understand austerity. The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, after 9 years under this government, it is clear that the Bloc and the Prime Minister are simply not worth the cost. The housing shortage and high rents have forced a 42-year-old woman to live in her minivan, and she won't be the only one. While Quebecers are simply trying to survive, the Bloc has chosen to vote for $500 billion in Liberal budget allocations. This means they voted for bureaucracy, red tape, and waste, like the $60 million Arrive scam program. When will the Bloc-supported Prime Minister stop wasting money so
Yeah,
Quebecers
this
can
country's
start
called
living with
Canada,
dignity
not
again?
Quebec. Exactly.
The Honourable Minister for Housing. Mr. Speaker.
There he goes.
If the member
Start
thinks there's a
waving those
problem
arms around.
in housing in Quebec, then why did he vote against housing projects in Quebec? 6. That's the number of total affordable housing
Only
units
6 homes were built. Yeah, we've heard
when
that one, Sean. Yeah.
the current leader of the
Where did you-
Conservatives
where
was
did you
housing
pick that
minister.
one up?
We are continuing to invest in affordable housing throughout Canada and in Quebec.
Failure with a capital F,
We
this
are
man.
investing in affordable housing, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Chicoutimi.
Why don't you find a nice rock to crawl under?
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this government, the housing crisis has become so serious that
Preferably a
Quebecers
large
are having
one.
trouble choosing between housing and food. The Journal de Montréal let us know that a 42-year-old woman is living in her minivan while the government continues to spend. And yet the Bloc, which claims to defend the interests of Quebecers, is making the situation worse by voting with the Liberals for $500 billion in budget appropriations. So it costs a lot to vote Bloc. Mr. Speaker, when will the Bloc-supported Liberals stop their out-of-control spending?
Yeah, somebody just said they're taking a mental health break by stopping one. This is a volatile week to be watching question
I'm
period.
very happy to be able to speak to housing with my colleague from Chicoutimi Le Fjord. In his riding alone, 180 affordable housing units were built. It's a great result. The only issue is that perhaps he could talk about with his leader so that he can figure out why only 6 affordable housing units were built during
Why
his
does this
entire
guy always
mandate.
look like he's doing pantomime
Great
every
news
time
for
he
his
gets up to
riding,
talk?
but the comparison is not the same.
I mean, he might as well just stop talking. I can't take him seriously. Anybody who wants you to take the vaccine for the rest of your
Mr.
life.
Speaker, the initial report of the Haut Commission unequivocally reveals the extent of foreign interference in our elections. The government will today table a bill containing measures to counter this interference. Better late than never. But if the government wants to show that it is really serious, it must finally create a register of foreign agents.
This is why this is such a joke.
It to do. The Bloc Québécois intends to table a bill to create a binding registry. But there's nothing to stop the federal government from going ahead today. Will the minister commit to legislating to create a binding registry of foreign agents? The Honourable Minister for Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, of course, we appreciate our colleague's enthusiasm.
Thank you for your
He
enthusiasm.
has a certain experience here in Parliament. He wouldn't want me to talk about a bill before it is actually tabled in this House of Commons. Mr. Speaker, I may be censured by yourself because it would be a violation of parliamentary privilege to do so, and I would never want to do that in my life. So I would like to ask my colleague to be patient, and I have full trust that we'll be able to work with him on these important issues in the future. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, the Haut Commission report also reveals the irresponsible attitude of the Prime Minister and the Liberal Party of Canada when faced with China's interference. The report confirms that as early as 2019, the Prime Minister was duly informed of irregularities in the candidate nomination in Don Valley North. The report even specifies on page 137 the reasons given by the Prime Minister for not withdrawing his candidate from the election. These reasons include, and I quote, given that the Liberal Party expected to win Don Valley North. In other words, the Prime Minister doesn't care about interference at all if, in the end, the Liberal Party wins. Should democracy take precedence over partisanship?
Totally true.
The Honourable
In fact,
Minister for Public
Trudeau
Safety.
was anticipating Chinese interference, and he welcomed
Unfortunately, I disagree with the last few words of my colleague's question.
Why that's very
We are the
unfortunate.
full government that implemented measures to counter foreign interference. We have since improved them, following recommendations made by experts. We have adjusted them, fine-tuned them, to strengthen them. We have worked with our friends in the Bloc and other parties in order to allow the Haut Commission to do its work. We are looking forward to the recommendations. And for sure, Parliament will have to work together in order to work with these recommendations.
Member from Mission, Mascree, Fraser Canyon.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder. Since the request 10 days ago to end deadly legalization, 60 British Columbians have died, and the impacts are felt in every community. The Abbotsford Soccer Association has to sweep their fields for dirty needles and deal with open drug use at our community parks. Patrons of the SkyTrain in Surrey Centre fear open use of meth on our transit system. Can the minister provide the date when they will finally cancel this wacko policy.
This is the reality of these crazy drug policies. You've been to Vancouver, you know what he's talking about. It is an unreal world. It's a surreal world where addicts are falling over everywhere on the street. And this woman doesn't get it.
Was set forth at BC's request to save lives. They have come to us now to amend their proposal, and working with the BC government, law enforcement, healthcare services to get this right to save lives of people who are dying because of a toxic drug supply is an urgent priority for us, Mr. Speaker.
They can't answer what is a 10-second response. They can't say, yes, we're going to follow BC's
comments until they're recognized by the chair.
Advice. We're going to do what they want, which is to relinquish the decriminalization. Recriminalize the hard drugs. They can't say that.
10 days ago that the
This is
BC
just so
government
ludicrous.
pleaded with this prime minister to end this wacko drug policy. There have
Yes.
been 60 overdose deaths since BC begged for this to come to an end. On what day will they finally act and give BC what they're asking for?
Yeah, they'll give their talking points again. There is a pilot project in BC, and we're considering it very carefully right now. We're examining the science.
Not to take the floor.
These liberals are not just stupid, they're infuriating. They are obfuscating at every level, and they are utterly useless, good-for-nothing political hounds.
Mr. Speaker, we have
Especially that
a very
one.
effective collaborative relationship with the province of British Columbia, and it is
No, you
frankly
don't.
insulting to the province to suggest that the province needs to beg us for anything.
Obviously, they do.
The province has serious concerns about their pilot project. We share their concerns, and we are working collaboratively and effectively to address those concerns. What we're not doing is playing partisan politics with the lives of real people.
My God, you can't even take them seriously.
After 9 years, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder. The BC government sent the Prime Minister all the information he needs to end his wacko drug policy experiment. In his 10 days of inaction, it's estimated 60 British Columbians' lives have been tragically lost to overdoses. Wacko drug policies have the RCMP citing government-supplied drugs being diverted, and open drug use of crack in hospital rooms, meth in restaurants, fentanyl in parks and playgrounds. Wow. How many more days will it take this Prime Minister to end his failed drug policy experiment?
How many more years the way they're going?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And of course, all members in this House are absolutely ripped apart by what we're seeing the opioid crisis do across this country. The responsibility that we have to the families who
Just
lost
like you're
loved ones,
ripped
the people who are in
apart by
crisis right
euthanasia.
now, is to make sure that we follow evidence. And the reality is, Mr. Speaker, that the ideas proposed by the Conservatives have been tried and failed everywhere they've been tried. And that if we're going to have honest conversations, holding out false solutions is very disappointing on a subject so sensitive. We need to work collaboratively
This
in an
man is so
evidence-based way
goddamn
to make
stupid.
sure that we do everything we can to get this right, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, over 1.9 million seniors 65 and over have successfully applied for Canadian Dental Care Plan. Conservative chose to vote against funding toward the CDCP. However, the numbers speak for itself and have demonstrated Canadians' overwhelming support for this program. Can the minister please update the House on the impacts of the work
This
being
is a
done
good
to
point,
provide access to dental care
Karina
for
Mitchell.
Canadians?
EB should just go ahead and just cancel the program, shut it down, and beg for forgiveness later because too many people are dying. And don't rely on morons and imbeciles like this fat-ass, fat-headed cabinet minister who is the worst form of partisan SOB to exist in Canada. I can't even take the man seriously. He is a joke, and he's been a joke since he got there in Ottawa.
Thanking the member for Richmond Hill, who has been such an incredible advocate to making sure all Canadians get the oral health care they deserve. And I want to say that in the first 3 days, we've had just extraordinary results, Mr. Speaker. 15,000 seniors have already, in fact, more than 15,000 seniors just in the first 3 days have already gotten service. And when you think about that, Mr. Speaker, it's a fundamental issue of dignity and prevention. Those are seniors who aren't going to wind up in a hospital room.
Hey, euthanasia czar, don't talk about dignity. I wouldn't trust you with anyone elderly.
With more and more signing up every day. We're going to get
the honourable member from Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, on April 11th, the Prime Minister said that it wasn't simply an overall the election was free and fair, but that in every single constituency election, election integrity held and it was free and fair. Justice Hogue concluded otherwise. She concluded that well-grounded suspicions about PRC interference in Don Valley North could, quote, could have impacted who was elected to Parliament. This is significant, end quote. Does the government agree with Justice Hogue that PRC interference could have impacted who was elected to Parliament in Don Valley North?
No surprise there.
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we agree with Justice Hogue that there has been an increase in foreign state actors, hostile state actors, seeking to interfere in the Canadian democratic process. Obviously, that takes place at the riding level. We also noted Justice Hogue saying that this is the case for a very small number of constituencies, and she is not able to draw definitive conclusions as to the extent of that impact. So I understand my honourable friend is identifying some of what Justice Hogue said. I think it's important to put it in the context that she herself did.
The honourable member from Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell the government what Justice Hogue concluded in Steveston, Richmond East. She found that, quote, there are strong indications of PRC involvement, and there is a reasonable possibility that these narratives could have impacted the results in this riding. Again, the Prime Minister said just several weeks ago that every single constituency election integrity held, and it was free and fair. Does the government agree with Justice Hogue that PRC interference could have impacted the election result in Steveston, Richmond East?
Yes. What's the answer? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we think that Justice Hogue has done a very serious job in terms of understanding the extent and nature of foreign interference and helping Canadians understand also the tactics that foreign hostile state actors may use and how they seek to undermine the confidence of Canadians in democracy. So I think we should be very careful, Mr. Speaker, before we take out of context specific things that Justice Hogue has said. Our government, unlike the government that was in office before 2015, has taken this matter seriously and will continue.
You're taking it seriously because you're benefiting from it.
In this regard.
That's how you're taking it seriously.
The honourable member from Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
The Liberal employment minister got caught cashing checks from his secret lobbying business. Turns out his own department got lobbied and then gave $10 million out, and the minister himself announced it. After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, it's clear they're not worth the cost or that corruption. How much did the minister pocket, and is the government prepared today to announce that they're going to have the RCMP investigate this latest Liberal scandal?
Where is Weston? Where is the employment minister? He won't stand up.
The minister has, of course, addressed that matter, Mr. Speaker, but let's talk about the member for Leeds Grenville, who in this House, in an alarming way last week, failed to rule out using the notwithstanding clause to deny the right of women to reproductive services in this country. There are 80 members of that caucus who have green or yellow lights from the Campaign Life Coalition. That's right. Who is going to be standing up over there to make sure that the rights of women are protected against these conservatives anti-choicers?
Waste of space. Total waste of space.
The honourable member from St. John's East.
cutting the pollution that is fueling costly climate change while building a strong, sustainable Canadian economy that creates jobs and invests in competitive, decarbonizing world is the key to success in the 21st century. The latest national inventory report confirms Canada has bent the curve and is reducing emissions toward
Hot
achieving
dog.
the country's 2030 emissions
What a
reduction
bunch
goal.
of gas
Can
this
the
is.
Minister of Environment and Climate Change update Canadians
They just gave
on
her
this
her little
progress
question
and the
before her
next
question.
steps
Here,
in
read
climate
this.
action?
Read this question.
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change. Thank you,
Pathetic.
Mr. Speaker. I
Good
thank my
job.
honourable colleague for her question. In fact, the emissions are down in Canada. And it's not only according to us, but the independent Canadian Climate Institute says that for the first time in the history of Canada, we're on track to meet our 2026 and 2030 targets, Mr. Speaker. 44 million tons less pollution in 2022 than in 2019. That's the equivalent of removing from our roads in Canada
Big
13 million
deal.
vehicles.
Yeah, you
which
want
is
to remove
basically
13
half
million
of our
vehicles from
existing
the road so we don't have
in
a choice to
Canada.
drive anywhere.
More needs to be done, which is why we're the first and only country in the G20 to have eliminated fossil fuel
This man
subsidies and the only
is a
large
criminal.
oil and gas producer
He wants
put
to
in place a
enslave
cap
us,
on emissions, Mr. Speaker.
but there's more to say about Gilbo. And we'll see if he gets up again.
The honourable member from Edmonton Strathcona.
I'll tell you some more about Gilbo.
Military invasion in Rafah will be catastrophic. Over 1 million people, half of them children, have no safe place to go. In Gaza, there's famine in the
Anyway,
north and bombing.
I wanted to mention about Stephen Gilbo. He wasn't wearing his pink jacket today. You know, he wears that pink sports jacket sometimes. He was wearing it last week, and he wore it when he opened up the plastics conference. Well, you know, and I joked about him going to the disco. He was going right from question period to the disco afterwards. A lot of people don't know that Stephen Gilbo was actually an extra in Saturday Night Fever. Yes. And you say, which one was he? He was the underage kid in the bar where John Travolta was doing the disco dance. But Gilbo, Gilbo is just so cool. And he's still going to the disco after all these years. So I thought you might like to know that.
Mothers and children. They have nowhere else to go, and asking them to move again is unacceptable. We continue to call for a sustainable ceasefire. This cannot be one-sided. Hamas must release all hostages and lay down its weapons, and humanitarian aid must get into Gaza. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Saanich Gulf Islands.
Unfortunately, and contrary to what the Minister of Environment just said, Canada is not on track to meet our target for 2030, which is expressed to the United Nations as 40 to 45% below.
I'm more green than you are.
Only conveniently forgetting the range to 45%. On top of that, we're still spending more money to support fossil fuels than to decarbonize. 34 billion on Trans Mountain, another 5.7 billion on fraud, carbon capture and storage, as well as underspending when they promise they're going to spend money on climate. We are at least 14 billion behind that promise.
Looks like she had a lot for lunch today.
The honourable minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Okay, Disco Man is back.
Maybe the member will take it from organizations which you probably know very well. Environmental Defence said, and I quote, "New data released today by the Government of Canada shows that we're finally starting to bend the curve when it comes to climate pollution. GHG emissions in 2022 were the lowest they've been in 25 years, Mr. Speaker, with the exception of the pandemic years. The Pembina Institute said Canada's climate policies are starting to pay off. It appears the suite of measures introduced by the Government of Canada over the last years is starting to make a notable dent in our overall emissions."
Staying alive, staying alive.
As we bring to the end of question period, again, I want to encourage all members, please, to keep.
There we go. Oh, well, Gilbo got up today, and you all got to hear about his thespian past. Yeah, he was an extra in Saturday Night Fever. Yeah, and he's still doing he's still doing the dance there, isn't he? He's always doing the environmental dance about how Canada's meeting its objectives, even though they're not. And even if they were, it doesn't matter because Canada produces about 1% of greenhouse gas emissions. So even if greenhouse gas emissions have anything to do with climate change, we're not affecting the global carbon footprint at all. It is just nonsense. It is absolute BS. And Gilbo knows he's playing this stupid game. He knows this is all about power. It's about taking away your freedom to do anything, to drive your car, to heat your home, to live in a house, to live in any kind of freedom, to have any kind of economic choices. He wants to take those away from you because he wants power. This is all about power. Environmentalism, the extremism of people like Stephen Guilbeault and Justin Trudeau is all about power, and it's about nothing else. Carbon is not pollution. Climate change has nothing to do with making the world cleaner. Has nothing to do with eradicating pollution from the world. It has everything to do with making people, small little people like Stephen Guilbeault, powerful. Small little minds like Stephen Guilbeault, powerful. And this is a guy who has absolutely nothing to offer this country except control. And I am sick to death of people like him. Anyway, I've said enough for today. Thanks for watching today. It's been a pleasure. I love you guys. I love your comments. I love the fact that you have so much to share. I appreciate your suggestions. Keep liking this station. Let's keep beating that algorithm, beating the Trudeau censorship, and beating the YouTube suppression. Thank you for watching today. You guys are fantastic, and I'll say it again.